for the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Blake Sloan, one of the top real estate agents not only on the Grand Strand, but in the world. He's been featured in Forbes magazine, the Wall Street Journal, NBC, and many other publications. And now, the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. And welcome into another weekend. It is the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. I'm your host, Dave Priest. Before we get into the show and talk to Blake, I just want to give you some numbers and contact information in case you hear something you like during the next 30 minutes, which you should. If you're buying, if you're selling, Blake has the information, but you need to know how to get in touch with him. His phone number is 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Area code is 843 here along the Grand Strand. Also, you can go online to the website that's been specially set up for this show. It's called BlakeSloanRadio.com. That's BlakeSloanRadio.com. We'll continue to give you those numbers and contact information throughout the course of the next 30 minutes. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get Blake on the air here. Blake, good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here.
We've got a lot of stuff. Next 30 minutes, I'm reading through some of the prep work here, and I don't know how we'll cover it all in the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, we'll try to fly through it as usual. Usually can get going pretty quick, but a ton of great information for both buyers and sellers. We're going to talk about the road ahead for 2013 in the housing industry, what's going on, what to expect, and kind of what a lot of experts are predicting as a whole. It's kind of a mix depending on who you're talking to. We're going to talk about a huge red flag that I about fell at my chair, but we're going to talk about a possible 20% minimum down payment for anybody looking to buy a home in the future, and that being a requirement thanks to more government regulation. We heard of gun control. Now we're kind of getting into mortgage control. It's kind of crazy, but that's something literally proposed, and people are kind of sitting on the edge of their seats to find out exactly what happens with that. So we'll talk about that, what that means for everyone. We're also going to talk about the 12 biggest mistakes that are made by agents as well as homeowners in the short sale process. That's something that we had a lot of interest the past 2 weeks, kind of getting into that, and just something I really want to say, look, here's what we found. We have a separate loss mitigation company, very, very successful. The average in MLS is less than 20%. We're over 90, close to 95% success rate. So huge difference there. It's one of the most successful systems in the country in regards to how it's done. So we're going to cover that, tips and tricks on what to do no matter what situation you're in, for both agents and home sellers out there. And of course, usually we have some smoking hot deals for all you guys out there, how to get info on that, and also how to continue to get those as soon as you get to market.
Well, you're talking about short sales. We've talked about it for the last couple of weeks, and whenever you just mention that, people's ears perk up. So that's why we're trying to give you all the straight skinny on that.
Absolutely, for both buyers and sellers. They can kind of give them some insight and kind of how it works. And we've seen some frustration on the buyer side, and this will kind of give you insight to why the certain things are happening, why it may take longer, because they usually take about 3 times longer statistically than traditional sales.
Well, we're just scratching the surface here. Now, if you're just watching or listening to the radio show for the first time, it is the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Real quick for all you new listeners, Blake is here in the Myrtle Beach area, but I'll help you out wherever you are. It's an amazing story, his rise to where he is. Industry leaders have called him the real estate whiz kid. As you heard in the intro, he's been featured in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Realtor magazine, NBC. You hear him endorsed here on this radio station by Sean Hannity and Glenn Beck. It's all kind of unprecedented where he is right now. Now, Blake, the thing is that over the week we've learned about how your team worked together, and you owe a good portion of your success from your trademark systems that you have for both buyers and sellers. If you could quickly recap that.
Absolutely, and that's the one thing that we kind of hound on every single week and say, look, the single most important variable that determines your success or failure as a buyer in the marketplace or a seller, doesn't matter who you are, is 100% tied to the agent that you choose. It's tied to the team, to the agent, whoever's representing you directly. It's not as much company, things like that. It's exactly who's helping you through that entire process. The reason is both in the home buying process, also in the home selling process, there's over 100 different variables through the entire time from A to Z. What happens is if those aren't properly managed all the way through, and every single one of those, I mean, you can do 98 out of them, those 2 that don't get done correctly are going to cost you a lot of money, regardless of what side you're on. In our systems, both of them, they practically manage each and every one of those variables from A to Z to create the maximum amount of leverage at every single point. So we have our guaranteed sold system for home sellers. And just a quick fact that kind of most people don't really realize is that in our local marketplace here, 52.31% of homes fail to sell in the market the first time. So you have less than a half chance of success, which is pretty crazy. With ours, we're literally less than 1% of ours don't sell. We're up to 99, really close to 100, over 99%. regards to actually get sold, and they sell for a lot faster. Our system, the guaranteed sold system, gets it sold faster and for 20% more money than traditional methods. And that's a huge thing because we practically manage every single variable through that entire process. Same thing for the buyers. We have an unfair advantage home buying system where we get you access to the absolute best deals out there before anyone else, before most real estate agents even know about them. Also, we get you access to the best financing. We've pretty much gone around, found the most aggressive lenders who lend the most money for the best rates, depending on their situation. You know, if it's a first-time buyer, investor, move-up buyer, whatever you may be, we can match you up with who has that best program. And we can also utilize our leverage in regards to a lot of transactions to help you get a better rate because they give our clients a better rate because we do send them more volume there. And that's the unfair advantage home buying system. We also help from A to Z all the way through. So if you're a first-time home buyer, we help make sure we have the best vendors, you know, home inspections, different people, handyman, whoever it is can help you through the entire process. We also make it very quick and easy so you're not searching through the newspaper to call on homes that sold 2 weeks ago. You're getting priority access before anyone else. Drive by, take a look at it. We can get you in there ASAP and make sure you get the best deal with that. And of course, a very, very strong negotiation on both sides. So it's huge for anybody to make sure they're represented by someone who's an expert in that, who knows exactly what they're talking about and exactly in that same field. And we'll talk about that same issue coming up in the short sale stuff and some of those biggest mistakes people make.
And coming up in just a second, move on to our next subject. Remember, we always, every week, talk about interest rates. We'll find out what they are. And coming up next, a lot of new real estate news, locally and regionally. We'll talk about all that coming up in just a second. It is the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. If you'd like to get in touch with him, of course, the number is 808-SOLD, 808-SOLD. That's area code 843, of course. And the website set up specially for this radio show, BlakeSloanRadio.com. Back in just a minute with more of the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show.
Hey, it's your friend Sean Hannity. Now, if you own property in Myrtle Beach, the national marketing plan of the realtor that you choose is absolutely critical. Now, that's exactly why you need to talk to Blake Sloan at Sloan Realty.
We're about 7 minutes. Actually, at the end of this commercial, it would be about 8 minutes.
Okay.
So that was a little bit longer than some of the other intros.
Yeah, I know.
That's cool.
All right.
Buy it. While most agents rely on yard signs and open houses that attract the occasional buyer, Blake attracts hundreds of buyers each month, which creates demand and helps your property sell fast and for top dollar. That's why, on average, Blake sells a property every single day of the year and is ranked among the top 100 agents in the entire U.S. by the Wall Street Journal. Now, working with Blake is risk-free. If you're not happy, Blake gives you the freedom to cancel your contract and pay nothing. So give Blake a call today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or just go online and see Blake's interview on NBC at Blake'sGuarantee.com. Blake'sGuarantee.com. And be sure to listen to Blake's Real Estate Show every Sunday morning at 9 and Saturday mornings at 8.
It's the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. I'm your host, Dave Priest. Blake Sloan with the Sloan Realty Group here in the Myrtle Beach area, but helping you out no matter where you are. Thanks for listening. The thing is that there is a lot of real estate news out this week, so why don't you just go ahead and delve into it.
It seems like every time we dodge one punch, you know, something else comes up or more certain things. But this is something we talked about before in the past. Obviously, I've talked about my concern of it, but it's really kind of more government intervention into what I like to, you know, see as a free market. But long story short, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, they call it the CFPB, came out with some of their rules and regulations they have, where it's this huge thing. But just kind of a quick thing where we've been worried about how these regulations are going to impact the whole housing industry as a whole. But they're really kind of creating regulations for what they call a qualified mortgage and the qualified residential mortgage. And that's going to affect the housing market as a whole. But just kind of simplify it for everyone, the idea of a qualified mortgage is to assure the ability to pay. So it's basically rules that the bank must follow to make sure the buyer has the ability to pay mortgage payments before they give them the loan. Right? So in essence, they're saying, look, people buying these got these mortgages, didn't know what they were doing, so now we're going to regulate it and make sure that it has to meet these certain things. There's the other part, which is the QRM, which is kind of the standards that the buyer must meet before they can get a mortgage. So there's two sides there: one, the bank side; two, the buyer side. So what happened recently is the CFPB released their QM rules, which is the qualified mortgage, which will be effective January 10, 2014. But what it does, it limits the loan types that can be offered by banks, their fee structures. We'll kind of talk about a few of the topics there. But some of the biggest parts of that is that the mortgage applicants, they're allowable back in their debt to income ratio set at 43%. And initially it was going to be 36%, which obviously make it a lot more tough to do so. And we'll post all this. There's a 7-page report we'll post on the website. Here's what did not happen yet and what everybody's kind of freaking out about and looking. So the QRM rules, which is the qualified residential mortgage. Right, those have not been released yet. Those are going to be set by several different federal agencies, such as FDIC, Federal Reserve, the FHFA, HUD, a lot of stuff here. So here's kind of what's going to supposed to be announced. They've already had proposals that's obviously out there, everyone knows about. But here's what they have: a maximum front-end monthly debt-to-income ratio, which basically looks just at consumers. They want to keep that at 28% from what's said. But here's the big kicker: they've recommended for a possible 20% down payment requirement for somebody who's going through that transaction. And that's what we're kind of hoping doesn't happen, which could be a massive, because we've had a ton of customers, hundreds and hundreds who've not made that 20% down payment. A lot of first-time buyers, obviously. Guess what? They're still in their house. They're still making that payment. Right. And as anything, I mean, the only thing that government's efficient at is being inefficient, in my opinion, because there's something that it's always, every time they get involved in free markets, it totally just creates quicksand. We see that every single day. More bureaucracies, more things where you have people who don't understand real estate, who aren't in there every single day in the trenches making rules and things that they don't really understand. So that's kind of huge news that we're kind of, I guess, concerned about looking at and kind of seeing what that could mean. But just to kind of give you the more detail, I guess you say, this is from a Bloomberg article that the 6 regulators are drafting a separate QRM rule, which you mentioned includes the Department of Housing, Urban Development, Office of Comptroller of the Currencies, the Security Exchange Commission, a couple others. Basically, they're deciding on this exact requirement, which was recommended by the Federal Housing Authority to make a minimum 20% down payment for that. So we're kind of watching this. This is something that the Mortgage Bankers Association said in a speech the 16th. They said, "I've consistently warned about the regulatory tidal wave to come, and it's finally upon us. These changes will impact business operations and the future of mortgages the future of mortgage access for years to come." Huge red flag, huge worry there, right? So we talked about this. What does this mean in the short term? Obviously, we're going to keep watching it. But if you're a first-time buyer, you're sitting on the sidelines. You know that clock's ticking in all kind of different ways. The next thing, obviously, is interest rates. Kind of what's going to happen with that. We're going to let you guys know as soon as we see that. We'll post it on the site. But huge red flag there, where the government's jumping in trying to regulate mortgages. To have 20% down payment. If the free market worked as it should, obviously it would equal out because those investors could decide that risk themselves. So huge thing. But we're also going to watch those mortgage interest rates to kind of see what happens as well.
Now you're talking about interest rates. Well, first of all, you had a lot of information you just went over there. You're going to be posting all of that stuff on the
absolutely
on the website at BlakeSloanRadio.com. So if you missed any of that, that's where you need to go. But speaking of interest rates, what's the new news there?
The whole rates as a whole this past week to week, they were up slightly, but they're pretty much steady in regards to their past recent months. This week, 30-year fixed rate mortgage based on the primary mortgage market survey, which is Freddie Mac's big weekly survey of a lot of the big lenders, rates at 3.42% for a 30-year fixed rate, and for a 15-year fixed rate, it's 2.71. So if you look at the compared to last week, it was 3.38, now it's 3.42. And as usual, anyone that uses us in our Unfair Advantage home buying system, they can get an extra 0.0125% discount through a certificate we can give them through one of our lenders. But the one thing to watch is there's a lot of concern that the Fed's going to just quit backing the mortgage-backed securities like they mentioned through quantitative easing, things like that. We'll kind of mention that in a second after the break. But it's relatively low now. Obviously, we're already seeing it creeping up. We'll probably hopefully see it move sideways a little bit, but we've already talked about over and over, it's going to be going up this year from what everyone says. Anybody on the sidelines definitely need to take action now.
All right, well, the thing is that in case you haven't checked your calendar, we've just gotten into 2013, so coming up in just a second, we're going to be looking at our outlook real estate-wise for 2013, buyers, sellers. Tune in when we're deep in. We'll give you all that information there. It is the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan of the Sloan Realty Group. To call, get in touch. 808-SOLD, 808-SOLD. Also the website, BlakeSloanRadio.com. If you miss any of the information you're hearing today, that's where to go, BlakeSloanRadio.com.
Hello, Myrtle Beach. It's Glenn Beck. And if you need to sell your property, you don't have to experience all the headaches.
We're going to be a little over 15 here, so about halfway through.
Okay.
Because you have a celebrity right in your backyard, Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group, that guarantees to sell your property at a price and a deadline that you agree to, or Blake is going to pull out his checkbook and buy it himself. The Wall Street Journal ranks Blake among the top 100 real estate agents in North America, and I personally met Blake, and I can tell you that his national marketing program is unparalleled. Most agents in Myrtle Beach, they stick a sign in your yard, maybe a few balloons, and they hope the buyer finds you. But Blake spends tens of thousands of dollars at level of service, but you never will. He's the real estate agent I wish I could have called, Blake Sloan. Call him now at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD, or visit Blake's website and see his interview on NBC. That's blakesguarantee.com. Or listen to Blake's Real Estate Show every Saturday morning at 8 or Sunday morning at 9.
Welcome back to the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. I'm your host, Dave Priest, on Hot Talk 99.5. But before we took our break, we kind of teased you that we wanted to look at what we can look at for 2013, and there's a lot of things, a lot of different aspects and facets to that, and we're going to talk a little bit about that the first few weeks of the new year so far. So what is the outlook for 2013?
Yeah, I've been combing like every possible data source and other experts and talking and, say, okay, where exactly are we at? What's all some of this conflicting data? Where are we at with all this government regulation, things like that. So outlook, me personally, looking forward to 2013, I'm going to say more cautiously optimistic, okay? And what that means is where we at, I think as long as we can stay away from certain, tightening regulation and things like that, we're hopefully going to get there. But we always talk about that one thing where it's supply and demand, right? Everything's driven supply and demand. That's what's so important. We talked about the trends that we're seeing here locally, where we saw sales up. Then we started seeing, inventory decline slowly with that. That's what helps ultimately bring prices back up. So just from the peak of the whole real estate market when it, kind of made that big turn, home prices dropped nationwide 30% roughly. So we've seen that going down. Obviously, we've already seen certain areas kind of rebound from that, come back. What's going to drive prices going forward? We talk about over and over is how much supply and demand it is, what it means to each location, where that. We've seen a lot of investor buying. They're buying single-family homes, kind of drying up their inventory. Some of those investors are flipping it. Some are holding it. We've seen a lot of them renting it out. And this is kind of a little bit concerned where we started tying some of these pieces together. But there's obviously several million families sitting on the sidelines from foreclosures, from short sales, whatever it may be, who can easily afford a house, but they can't get back into it credit-wise in those regards. So what we've seen is a massive amount of different hedge funds, a ton of investors who are getting in there. I'm not sure if you guys heard Blackstone Group, giant hedge fund or giant fund that's buying literally billions of dollars of real estate, is going to hold onto it, it's going to sell. They're not doing it here in our area yet, from what I've been able to find, but a lot of other areas I've heard they're buying literally 8 and 9 a day, even some close to Charlotte. Some of the larger cities, they're just buying up. They said, I have some friends who are agents who are saying they're putting 8, 9 contracts a day out there to get those done. So they're buying up a lot of inventory, which is obviously driving up some of that. Long as we're looking at some of the people who are long term, that's going to help too for certain areas. The one big concern with that is the fiscal policy from the Fed, where some of these good news from the housing economy, say it's recovering, this and that, is going to kind of put more pressure for them to kind of back out of that mortgage-backed security buying they have. If you look at how much they've invested there, their balance sheet ballooned up to $3 trillion from buying mortgage-backed securities, which is huge. So they're going to say, look, we heard it before where they came out in the minutes from the Fed. They're saying, hey, look, we kind of need to get out of this pretty soon, which is obviously going to let rates go back up like we talked about. So overall, cautiously optimistic. The one thing that's really kind of alarming, or kind of not alarming, but made me really kind of think, where we mentioned some of the stats here, how we compared locally to some of these national numbers where they're seeing big jumps in prices and things like that. Well, what we're able to tie together, everybody's kind of bullish, but there's a few that kind of were more bearish and were able to find some more data. And the big thing of these housing numbers going up, if you look there in these major metropolitan areas, well, this came from Radar Logic recently in a report that said an increased share of the sales activity has been driven by institutional investors rather than household buyers. So that's kind of what we were thinking, was obviously these numbers going up, and you're seeing these certain positive things where, yes, there's some great positive info going out there, but that's something to really watch. And that's what I mentioned a few weeks ago. Hey, look, we usually follow the trends of California, Nevada, Florida a few months behind. And also when you're seeing these larger cities and larger areas seeing these big gains, even more so than where everybody wants to buy, right, which is California, Florida, Nevada, certain areas. And that was something that kind of was a little bit mixed there. But now we're kind of seeing it hopefully level out. As long as we can have a little bit of reduction from government strangling out, I think we'll hopefully be okay with that. So as an overall whole, most there are cautiously optimistic, I'd say. It's not quite out the woods yet. It's very positive. Hopefully we can, but it's still very, very fragile. And anybody obviously wants to take advantage of that as a seller definitely needs to. Buyers, the clock is ticking, right? We talked about that same thing for anybody. It's a home sale that may be in distress. Definitely to make sure that they're able to take advantage now while things are kind of clear, at least coming out of the woodwork a little bit.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a break here real quick. Coming back in just a second, going to be talking about how you can avoid some of the biggest mistakes that you might be making, especially if you're making a short sale. That's all coming up in just a minute during the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. Questions? Comments? Call 843-808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or go online to the website at BlakeSloanRadio.com. It's the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan, the Sloan Realty Group.
Hey, it's your friend Sean Hannity. Now, if you
I saw you. I looked up. You're gone. I looked up and you're gone. I was like, oh man, it's just here we go.
Absolutely critical.
I had a quasi-emergency at the AM station. I just had to do something real quick.
Gotcha.
Them on a whole different level than anyone else in Myrtle Beach.
10 minutes.
Okay, actually, it's see, at the end of this commercial, it's going to be closer to about 22, so you're going to have about 8 minutes total left.
Okay.
So do you want to combine like the biggest mistakes and the hot deal of the week?
Yeah, so do like you did last time with just giving me that last warning. We won't do a commercial at the end.
Okay.
Yeah, just whatever that was, and I'll knock that in a minute.
Okay, so we got about 8 minutes. It'll be about 8 minutes then,
Okay.
if you want to go all the way to the end.
Okay.
Contract and pay nothing. So give Blake a call today at 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. Or just go online and see Blake's interview on NBC at Blake'sGuarantee.com. Blake'sGuarantee.com. And be sure to listen to Blake's Real Estate Show every Sunday morning at 9 and Saturday mornings at 8.
Welcome back to the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan of Sloan Realty Group. I'm your host, Dave Priest. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, we're going to be giving the hot deal of the week. We always end off the show with something that is always an incredible deal. So that's coming up in just about 5 minutes. But in the meantime, we've got plenty of time to get to something. Well, the last couple of weeks here on the show, if you haven't been tuning in, we've been talking about short sales. And you've got a great list of things that you need to not do if you want to be doing a short sale.
What not to do to have a chance, right? And this is, we'll kind of fly through them a little bit, just hopefully get through them at least. But if you're basically a seller and you're kind of just going into the market and you're going to do a short sale, you used to have an 80% chance of failure in a market, which is crazy. Based on the stats, where roughly the acceptance rate we've seen is about 20%. The reason is because there's such a massive amount that are, basically going through these banks. They're overloaded, and there's certain things that have to be done through that entire process to make sure that it gets through. I've literally flown around the country to make sure we can find out from these banks and from their people who work for them, what do we need to do, what has to happen, and we've been able to perfect this system where our success rate's well over 90%. So the first thing too is, number one is a poor short sale candidate, right? You want to make sure that you're able to establish a criteria, an objective criteria, which is usually some form of hardship, right? You want to make sure you're able to sit down and interview. That's why part of our guaranteed sold system, we do a strategic analysis to make sure, okay, where are we at? What's the reason? What's the big reason we're going to be able to justify to this lender, to this bank, what the hardship is and why they need to make a decision to do a short sale. The number two reason is that agent lacks a familiarity with the lender's requirements or procedures to complete the short sale. There's so many aspects of it, which servicer it is, who the investor is. It could be a Fannie Mae, could own the actual loan, be serviced by Bank of America. There's a million different things, but you want to make sure that person, they harvest and they maintain those lender-specific or investor guidelines to make sure you do exactly what they want, have all the information the first time, and exactly what they do. We actually have all those forms, pretty much everyone. We have contacts with all of them, so we can reach out directly and make sure that we're able to tailor that. And what happens is, let's say there's hundreds coming in a day. And they're going to usually go to the ones that are easiest, that are perfect, and that's kind of what we're able to do, is tailor that to them so it gets right to the top and gets moved through very quickly. Number three is the title exam not being obtained in the beginning. We see it so many times where this helps us identify certain things that the homeowner may not know about, any liens, a certain judgment, HOA liens. We see that a lot too. We're having to negotiate all these times with these third-party lien holders while the clock's ticking on the foreclosure side. So that may be, hey, we got the loan negotiated down to accepting half of what it was. Now we're still fighting over a $10,000 HOA issue. That's important to make sure you have those, and that's carried up and taken care of up front as well. Number four is a huge reason we see the biggest one is incomplete package being submitted to the lender or servicer. Like I mentioned, ours is so literally dummy proof, you could call it. It's so let's say page 1, cover page. And then it has a cover page after that. Let's say page 3 have exactly what that is, but all the docs have to be executed perfectly. If you're sending back for signatures, guess what? You got to start back over. Certain things, it's perfect every single time. That's a big reason that's why I say, hey, we never heard back from our bank. Yeah, because it's sitting in a pile somewhere to get back to. Number 5 is that the short sale process was started without having an offer of any certain type. That's not a must, but it's something that's very, very important because not having that can add another 60 to 30 days additionally on top of that minimum. So that's something important where the lender a lot of times will look at these short sales a lot closer, a lot differently when there's a real offer that's realistic that they can do evaluation on and determine if they're going to accept that as well. There's other options there, but obviously that helps big time. The one thing we talked about too is number 6 is that the complete package is not maintained through the entire process. You want to make sure that you have updated financial records, that you're getting that to your negotiator. And we actually have a separate loss mitigator that works with an attorney we partner with to make sure we get that information to the bank all the time. The next part, number 7, kind of goes with this, but number 7 is a lack of communication with the lender, right? Where most all the negotiators at the bank are overwhelmed with all these individual cases they're working on, certain misunderstandings, they lost the documents. We fax things 10 times sometimes. We developed our own software. It tracks everything, who we talk to, when we talk to them, when we sent this. So when they're like, hey, we don't have your package, we're like, yes, actually, we sent it to you, on the 7th, and the confirmation is right here. Oh yeah, now we're able to find it. There's certain things we're able to dig through and make sure we're protecting, including every single conversation, which is also number 8, poor record keeping by the agent or the person who's helping do that, where it's going to be a high probability that the person who you're working with is going to get moved or fired or let go. That's something that's huge to make sure you document through that. The other thing is that you have to, number 9, professional relationship with the negotiator is not established. Hey, look, they know we're the expert, they know we have an attorney with us, and they know everything we're doing is exactly correct and how it should be, and that makes it a lot more smoother through the process. And the one thing is, number 10 is huge, is failure to meet the BPO, which is the broker price opinion, or the appraiser at the property when the bank sends someone out to value. They send somebody out to basically do evaluation to say, okay, is this worth it? Is this what they're saying it is, etc. We're able to do that, meet them with a detailed property description, some comps that we say, because they can hire someone from out the area who doesn't even know our marketplace. They think your house that's worth 150 is worth 190. Now you're not getting accepted there. So we're able to make sure they properly value that. Number 11 is a fair market dispute, which happens all the time. We're able to make sure if it does come in wrong, we get that escalated to someone, which is number 12, is failure to escalate to a higher authority when something breaks down. We always ask for their managers, hey, you did such a great job. Let me get your manager's information so we can let them know you did such a good job. Boom, we have that, and now we're able to reach out to them for that file if needed, also for any future files, and all that stuff's in our proprietary software to make sure we can make sure every single one of those goes through the process every single time. And that's how we're able to pretty much attack that instead of sit back and be a victim or be in reaction mode.
If you missed any of that, we'll be putting that information up on the website, blakesloanradio.com, blakesloanradio.com, and a lot of complex information. That's why you have somebody who specializes in exactly that with the Sloan Realty Group, so they can go over just that on a daily basis.
Yeah, that was a 600-mile-an-hour version of the whole thing to kind of squeeze it in. But call us, email us. We'll definitely help you out. Free, consultation in regards to your situation. We'll help you no matter what to at least lead you the right direction.
Got about a minute and a half left in the show here today. We always end off the show with some of the hot deals of the week. So what's hot out there, Blake? Awesome
deal this week is everybody's been calling about it, waiting to get a price. We just got our price. We have an immaculate home on a lake in a cul-de-sac in Hunter's Ridge. It's got a giant patio in the back for entertaining, a huge jacuzzi tub in the master bath, and it's freshly painted, new carpet in it, stainless steel appliances. Just got a listing price $2,099. Huge deal on that. And we're obviously one of the largest foreclosure brokers in the area. We always have 30 to 50 we don't have a price on yet. Call us, get inside information. You can get on that VIP list. We'll get you the price the minute it comes out. Like I said before, most real estate agents even know about it.
Hunter's Ridge in the Forest Brook area.
Yep.
So that's a great school district as well. So if you've got kids you're looking for.
And the house is immaculate. It's like almost like a brand new house. You wouldn't even know it's a foreclosure without seeing it.
Fantastic. Well, we've got about a minute left here. Got any last minute words of wisdom?
Tons more deals too. And there's other ones. We just got one that's on the waterway in the Bluffs. Unbelievable house. We're still waiting to get the valuation on that. Pool, dock, jet ski lift, everything there. Every single price range, everything it goes in. There's a lot, house, north end, south end, Georgetown, oceanfront. We have every type of deal you can possibly imagine. Give us a call. We'll get you that list out. No hassle, no charge. All that stuff, just a community service that we offer.
All right, Blake. Thanks for being here again this week.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
All right, it's the Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan. If you need any of that information again, go online to blakesloanradio.com. That's blakesloanradio.com. You can also email at ask@blakesloanradio.com. The phone number 808-SOLD. That's 808-SOLD. The Expert Advantage Real Estate Show with Blake Sloan.